So we've been flying, and you know, as pilots, we are trained to work under stress, usually. But there are different kinds of stress which we are trained to work for. And what happened during the last few months, during the war in Lebanon, it wasn't something we are trained for, but still, we had to adapt. And as Lebanese, we found that it's our duty to fly those people. Now, the question is, were we scared? Yes, definitely we were scared. So I'm a Lebanese citizen. I was born and grew up in Lebanon during the Civil War, and I've lived all my life almost in Lebanon, except for the years where I had to go study, and for a few years I worked abroad. I'm a mother of 2 boys, wife, and I'm a pilot who flies in Lebanon. I remember the very first flight when Beirut was getting bombed on the very first night. Not Beirut, actually, it was Beirut suburbs that was getting bombed. And I was flying with the co-pilot from Dubai. It was at 1:30 in the morning we were landing. And honestly, we didn't know that Beirut suburbs were getting bombed, because when we are up there, we have no connections, no connection, like no Wi-Fi, nothing on the Airbus 330. So we didn't know. We knew that the Bekaa was getting bombed, we knew that the south was getting bombed, but we didn't know on that day, on that night, that also Beirut suburbs, which is very close to the airport, was getting bombed. So as we were approaching, we could see like there was some fire somewhere around Beirut. And we asked the tower, is it, like, do you think it's safe to land in Beirut? And he said, like, the airport is open. He didn't give us any further instructions on anything. Like, maybe he didn't want us to get worried. But then as we got closer and we saw the fires and we saw, it was the scariest, really scariest thing we had faced. So the co-pilot was flying, he was landing the plane in Beirut. So I looked at him and I said, listen, whatever is going on, they expect us to land. They know our trajectory if we're going to land. If we do not land, we might confuse them. So you have no choice but to land this plane. Do not focus on anything outside, just focus at the runway and land this plane. And honestly, he did. He did a great job. We were both very stressed, definitely. But he did an amazing job. He landed the plane. And after landing, we opened our phones and we had messages, like news flashes saying that the airport might get hit. I told him, do you think, how are you going back home? He said, I'm driving my car. And I said, you know what? I'm going to drive just behind you. In case one of us got hit, at least the second one will tell the family. Because we didn't know. It was the very first night. We had no clue what was going on. And that's what happened. We drove behind each other until we reached Beirut downtown. And then he continued and I turned back to my house. It was a horrible night, but thanks God, it was safe after all. When we went on layovers, because most of the flights were layovers, because planes were not allowed to be parked in Beirut airport during the night. So most of the flights that were PM flights, afternoon flights, we had to stay over and come back in the morning. And honestly, on every flight, we would take summer clothes and winter clothes because we don't know where we're going to end up being eventually. We would keep on, we'd go to the hotel, but you won't feel that you are on a layover, that you can go and explore and go and see the country. All what you would do is sit and read the news and see what's happening. Because you've left the family back in Lebanon. My parents, my sisters, my husband, and also with the other crew members, some of them, they had their children. So we would stay the whole time when we were abroad, just checking the news and reading the news, or sitting in a crew room, or sitting together and talking about what's happening and about our experiences. As when we were in Beirut, also all what we were worried about is if the next day we're going to be alive to operate another flight. It's a war and nobody knows what happens. Like, anything can happen. I know it might not be intentional, but things happen, collateral damage after all. So yeah, it was, as I said, it was a very stressful phase. When we had that war, I feel more affectionate towards Lebanon, and I feel pity that a beautiful country that Lebanon has to face war after war after war. And it made me feel that I'm more attached to this country. And my only fear during the war was, what if I go on one of my flights and the airport closes and I have to stay abroad? Honestly, that was one of my phobias and fears. And I want, if the airport is going to close, I want to be in Lebanon, not abroad. So yes, the war made me feel that I love Lebanon more and more.